The CEO needed a fake date for a gala, but everyone was stunned when she outshined his entire board. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started with today's story. In the heart of the bustling city of New York, the evening sky was lit with the glow of 1,000 lights. The gala was set to be one of the most prestigious events of the year, where the wealthiest and most influential people gathered to make connections, discuss business, and showcase their status. But for one particular CEO, tonight was not just another event. It was a mission. Liam Parker, a man in his early 40s, had built an empire in tech from the ground up. He had all the wealth and influence a man could ask for. Yet there was something missing, a piece of his life he had been trying to fill with power, work, and appearances. For years, he had been a fixture in the business world, a leader admired and feared by many. But when it came to personal connections, he found himself empty. Tonight's gala was a test of his power, of his status, but more importantly, it was a test of the image he had built. The gala was a place where everything about him would be scrutinized, his image, his choices, and even his relationships. And that was the problem. His ex-wife had just made a big splash in the media, and his board of directors, who already questioned his ability to balance personal life with business, were pressing him to show them he could handle both. So, Liam had come up with a plan. He needed a date for the evening, someone who would look the part and fit in with the high society crowd, someone who could make him appear more human, more approachable. But there was a catch. She couldn't be just any woman. She had to be someone special. As fate would have it, he met her one rainy afternoon at a cafe. Mia Williams, a woman in her 30s, was working at a small local bakery. She wasn't dressed in the typical designer brands or fancy gowns like the women at the gala. In fact, she was a complete contrast to the glamorous women he was used to associating with. She wore simple clothes and had a modest air about her. But when she served him coffee with a smile, he saw something in her, a spark that made her stand out. There was an energy about Mia that intrigued him. She was genuine, real, and completely different from the people he usually interacted with. When he asked her if she would join him as his date for the gala, she was taken aback at first, unsure if it was a joke. But when Liam explained that he needed someone to fill the role for the night, she agreed, albeit reluctantly. She wasn't sure what she was getting herself into, but it was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. She would never have imagined herself in such an event, but the chance to experience something so out of her ordinary life was too tempting to refuse. So, Mia found herself standing in front of a mirror, dressed in a stunning designer gown, her hair styled perfectly, and her makeup flawless. She hardly recognized herself. The woman who had once worked long hours in a bakery was now stepping into a world of wealth and luxury, a world where everything felt foreign, yet strangely exhilarating. Liam, on the other hand, was counting on her to blend in, to be the perfect arm candy for the night. What neither of them expected, however, was how much Mia would outshine everyone in the room. As soon as they entered the gala, all eyes turned to her. The room fell silent for a moment as people took in her presence. She wasn't just another beautiful woman. She carried an air of confidence that radiated effortlessly, drawing attention from everyone, even the CEO's board members. They were all stunned by how effortlessly she held herself in the spotlight. Liam, who had hoped to simply get through the evening without any more scrutiny, couldn't help but notice how his guests reacted to Mia. They were captivated by her, and for the first time in years, he felt a spark of something real, something more than just appearances. But little did he know, this was only the beginning of a night that would change everything for both of them. The gala was in full swing. The grand ballroom was a sea of sparkling gowns and tuxedos, the glittering chandeliers casting a warm glow over the impeccably dressed guests. Mia, standing beside Liam, felt like a fish out of water. She had never been in such a glamorous setting before. The smooth hum of conversation and the clink of champagne flutes seemed to swirl around her, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being completely out of place. She had always been someone who found comfort in simple things, like the smell of freshly baked bread or the hum of a small-town cafe. Now, She was surrounded by people whose names she'd only ever heard in the media, whose wealth and influence seemed like an entire world away from her own. Liam, on the other hand, moved through the room with the grace and ease of someone who was born into this world. He was used to the whispers of admiration, the curious glances, the polite nods from business partners, and the constant stream of high-powered executives who wanted a piece of him. But tonight, there was something different in the air. As they walked deeper into the room, it was clear that Mia was stealing the show. People were turning their heads to look at her, eyes widening in admiration. Liam noticed it too. The way the conversation shifted when she entered the room, the way the entire atmosphere seemed to change. His colleagues, who usually never took their eyes off him, were now looking at her, intrigued, captivated by her presence. She wasn't just pretty. She had something else, something that set her apart from everyone else. There was an authenticity to her that drew people in. As the evening wore on, Mia began to feel the weight of the attention. She was no longer the simple woman from the bakery. She was being treated like a high-profile guest, with people vying for her attention, complimenting her on her gown and the way she carried herself. It was flattering, but it also made her uncomfortable. She had never been the center of attention before, and it was hard for her to navigate. She kept looking over at Liam, who seemed completely at ease, as if he belonged here. The closer they got to the center of the room, the more she realized that she didn't just have the board's attention, she had Liam's as well. Their eyes met across the room, and for a moment, everything else faded away. In that brief, fleeting moment, she could see something in his eyes that she hadn't expected, admiration. Maybe even something more. The evening continued, and despite the whirlwind of conversations and polite exchanges, Mia found herself drifting away from the crowd. She wandered into the quieter part of the ballroom, hoping for a moment to gather her thoughts. The spotlight was overwhelming, and she needed a breath of fresh air. Liam, sensing her discomfort, followed her. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, but there was an edge of concern. Mia hesitated before responding, her voice soft. "This is just a lot. I didn't expect to be treated like this. I'm not used to it." Liam smiled, a reassuring smile that felt oddly genuine. "You're doing great. Just be yourself." Mia nodded, but inside, she was still unsure. She didn't want to be seen as just another woman on his arm. She wanted to be more than that. As they continued their conversation, Liam noticed something else. Mia wasn't just outshining the board. She was outshining him too. She wasn't intimidated by the power or the wealth in the room. She held her own, and it was that quiet confidence that caught the attention of everyone around her. By the end of the evening, it was clear that Mia had become the unspoken star of the event. The board members, who had originally been focused on Liam, were now turning to her, asking questions, laughing at her stories. It was as if she had effortlessly stepped into the role she was never supposed to play, and for once, Liam felt something he hadn't expected, a pang of pride. But as the night came to a close and the guests began to leave, something unexpected happened. The board members were no longer looking at him. They were looking at Mia. Liam realized then that the night had taken an unexpected turn. He had wanted to use Mia as a prop, a way to maintain his image, but now it was clear that the attention was no longer on him. It was on her. And in that moment, Liam found himself both proud and unsure. Was he really ready for what this night had turned into? As the evening came to a close, the ballroom slowly emptied, but Mia couldn't shake the feeling that the night had changed everything. Liam had been by her side throughout the event, his presence comforting yet distant, as if he were watching her from the sidelines instead of actively participating in the night's drama. They exchanged polite words, but there was something unspoken between them now, something neither of them could ignore. The shift had happened so subtly, but it was undeniable. Mia had done more than simply attend the gala as Liam's date. She had effortlessly captured the attention of everyone in the room, including Liam himself. As the guests trickled out, Liam's colleagues lingered, exchanging whispers, not about him, but about her. The subtle glances, the admiration in their eyes. It was clear Mia had left an impression, one that Liam hadn't anticipated. His mind raced. He had hired her to be a decoration, a temporary fixture in his high society world. He had never imagined that she would take center stage, effortlessly outshining everyone, including him. Walking alongside her as they exited the ballroom, he felt a strange mixture of pride and discomfort. He had to admit, there was something about her. He had wanted a lifeless accessory, but instead, he had found someone who had her own light, her own presence. The realization hit him like a freight train. This wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. There was something more here, something he couldn't quite define but felt deeply. Mia, on the other hand, was just trying to keep her composure. The attention had been overwhelming. She had never expected to walk into a world so foreign to her and not only survive but thrive. The way people treated her tonight was like nothing she had ever experienced. She was a small-town girl who had worked her entire life to get by, to survive. And yet, here she was, the center of attention at an exclusive gala, rubbing elbows with billionaires and executives. As they walked toward the exit, she stole a glance at Liam. He had been distant all night, but now there was something different in the way he looked at her. His eyes, once cold and professional, were now filled with something else, something Mia couldn't quite place. Was it admiration? Or was it a recognition of something he hadn't expected to find? Are you okay? Liam's voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to him, forcing a smile. Yeah, just a lot to take in, you know? Liam nodded but didn't say anything for a moment. They walked in silence for a while, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. The night had turned chilly, and Mia pulled her coat tighter around her, wishing she could escape the weight of the evening. But as they approached the door, Liam stopped and turned toward her. Mia, he began, his voice suddenly more serious than before. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect you. She raised an eyebrow, unsure of what he meant. What do you mean? I mean, you've completely turned everything around tonight. I thought I was just hiring someone to fill a role. But you... He paused, his eyes searching hers for the right words. You've outshined all of them. You've made an impact. Not just here, but on me too. Mia's heart skipped a beat, but she tried to keep her emotions in check. I'm just doing my best, Liam. I'm not trying to make an impression or anything like that. He studied her for a moment, as if trying to read her, trying to understand the woman who had walked into his life so unexpectedly and now had him questioning everything. You're not just trying, Mia, he said quietly. You're succeeding. She looked down, feeling the weight of his words. Was she succeeding? Was that all this was? Just another performance, another role to play? She didn't know anymore. All she knew was that something had shifted. She had walked into this night as a simple woman, doing a job she didn't quite understand. But now she felt different. She wasn't just the hired date. She had made a mark. As they stepped outside into the crisp night air, Mia felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. The lights of the city shimmered in the distance, but all she could think about was the strange tension that hung between her and Liam. Was she still just a pawn in his game, or had something real started to take root? She wasn't sure, but as Liam's hand brushed against hers, a spark ignited inside her. Could it be possible? Could this night, this strange and unexpected turn of events, lead to something more than just a contract? The following week passed in a blur for Mia. The evening at the gala had felt like a dream, but the reality of her life quickly settled back in. She found herself returning to her usual routine, long hours at the bakery, worrying about bills, and wondering if she'd ever truly escape the cycle of struggling just to get by. Yet, something lingered from the gala, something that pulled her thoughts back to Liam. He had changed somehow. The man she had seen just as a powerful CEO, distant and professional, now seemed different. There was a vulnerability to him that he hadn't shown at the gala, a crack in the polished image he had built for himself. It was clear to her that their interaction hadn't been just a fleeting moment. It meant something to him, even if it wasn't clear exactly what. As she baked loaves of bread in the quiet of the early morning, Mia couldn't help but think back to their last conversation, when Liam had mentioned how she had outshone everyone. She had shrugged it off at the time, but now, with the scent of fresh bread filling the air, she wondered if she had made a real impact on him. Maybe she wasn't just a prop in his life, after all. She had her own spark, and it seemed to be something that he saw, even if it was buried under layers of his own control. Just as she was wrapping up for the day, her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Liam. Mia, I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about what happened at the gala, and I'd like to meet with you soon. Would you be interested in joining me for a coffee? No agenda, just a conversation. Mia felt a knot form in her stomach. Was he reaching out because he felt guilty for using her? Or was this his way of asking her for something more? It didn't make sense. He had a whole world of people who were more than happy to attend galas and play the part. Why was he contacting her? Despite her hesitations, curiosity got the better of her, and she agreed. They set a time for the following afternoon at a quiet cafe in the city. When she arrived, Mia was greeted by Liam's presence, sitting casually at a corner table, looking much less like a corporate titan and more like a man who had a few things on his mind. He stood when he saw her, offering a warm smile. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, gesturing to the empty seat across from him. Mia nodded, still unsure of what to say. As she sat down, she felt the familiar sense of unease creeping in, but she pushed it aside. "I'm glad you called," she said, offering a small smile of her own. "I've been wondering why you asked me to the gala in the first place." Liam leaned back slightly in his chair, his hands folded on the table. "I guess I owe you an explanation," he said, his voice steady, but with an undertone of something she couldn't quite place. "It wasn't just about the gala. You've made an impression on me, Mia. More than I expected, honestly." Mia looked at him, trying to read his expression. "You're not just talking about the gala, are you?" she asked, her voice softer now, hesitant. He shook his head slowly. "No, I'm not. It's more than that. What happened that night? How you carried yourself. It made me realize something. I don't think I've been honest with myself about a lot of things in my life." He paused, as if considering whether to continue. "I've spent so long building this empire, thinking that success was everything. But what I saw in you, it made me realize that there's more to life than just business." Mia was quiet for a moment, letting his words sink in. She hadn't expected this kind of conversation, but there was a sincerity in his voice that made her listen. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said softly. "I'm just trying to get by. I didn't even belong in that world you live in." Liam looked down at his hands, his expression softening. "That's the thing, Mia. I thought I had everything I needed. Money, power, success. But all of it feels meaningless without someone to share it with. Without real connections. I'm not asking for anything, but I wanted you to know that you've made me rethink a lot of things." Mia felt her heart race, but she couldn't quite understand what was happening. Was this an apology? A confession? Or was he simply making conversation? She didn't know. She had never been good at navigating relationships, especially ones that seemed to move so fast. She took a deep breath and looked him in the eye. "I'm not sure what you want from me, Liam. I'm not looking for anything more than what I have. I don't need a billionaire's attention, and I don't want to be part of your world just because I caught your eye." He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "I understand," he said quietly. "I don't want to pressure you. I just wanted to be honest with you. I've been living in this bubble, and it took meeting someone like you to remind me that there's more to life than just climbing the ladder." The words hung in the air between them. Mia didn't know what to say next, but for the first time since she had met him, she saw Liam not as the CEO who had hired her to be his date, but as a man who was struggling to find something real. The next few moments passed in silence, both of them unsure of where this conversation was headed. Mia wasn't sure what to do with what he had said. She had always been so careful to keep her life simple, to keep it within her reach. But now, with Liam opening up to her, she felt a shift, a tiny crack in the walls she had built around herself. Maybe this was the beginning of something different. Maybe it was the beginning of understanding what it meant to truly connect with someone. Over the next few days, Mia couldn't stop thinking about her conversation with Liam. It was strange to her how a few words could leave such a lasting impact. The whole world she had been so determined to keep distant from had somehow found its way into her life. She had agreed to be a part of Liam's world, just as a temporary companion, a date for a gala. But now, it felt like something was changing, something bigger than either of them had anticipated. She wasn't sure if it was her own confusion or the subtle pull she felt toward him, but she couldn't deny that things felt different. Mia had always lived in the realm of the practical, the everyday struggle of making ends meet, never allowing herself to dream of anything beyond that. But now, with Liam's words echoing in her head, she began to question whether she was selling herself short. Was this all life had to offer? Was she destined to stay in a small bakery, never knowing what it was like to live in a world of opportunities? Liam's message, inviting her to meet again, had sparked something inside her that made her want to explore more, even though she had told herself repeatedly that she didn't belong in his world. As she sat in her tiny apartment, looking out over the city, she realized that she had to decide what she wanted, not just for the future, but for herself. She didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. She couldn't keep pretending that she was just the same as before. She wasn't. The next afternoon, Mia found herself walking into the sleek coffee shop Liam had chosen for their meeting. It was quieter than she expected, the perfect place for a real conversation. As she stepped inside, Liam stood up from his seat at the corner table, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment, it felt like everything else in the room faded. There was something about the way he looked at her, something sincere, something different from the businessman who had first hired her. "Hey, Mia," he said with a slight smile, his voice gentle. "I'm glad you came." She returned his smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I wasn't sure what to expect, honestly," she replied, sitting down across from him. There was a brief silence as they both gathered their thoughts, unsure of how to start. "I know this might sound strange," Liam began, his voice lower than usual, "but I've been thinking a lot about our conversation the other day. You made me realize that I've been looking for something that I didn't even know I needed. Something real." Mia felt a knot form in her chest, but she didn't look away. "I'm not sure what you're saying, Liam," she replied softly, her hands nervously clutching the edge of her cup. "What do you mean by something real?" He looked at her, his gaze steady. "I'm not asking for anything from you, Mia. But the truth is, I've spent so long building this empire, thinking that if I had everything, it would be enough. I thought that having wealth, status, and success would fill the emptiness. But the truth is, I've been looking for someone to connect with, someone who sees me, not the image I've built. And you did that." Mia felt her heart race, her breath catching in her throat. She didn't know what to say. She had come into this meeting with so many questions, but this was something she hadn't expected. "I didn't ask for this either, Liam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd be in a situation like this. But I don't know what you want from me." Liam leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "I'm not asking for anything, Mia," he said gently. "I just wanted to be honest with you. I don't want to keep pretending like everything is perfect. I'm realizing that I need to take a step back and find what really matters. And that means being honest about the kind of connection I want." Mia was silent for a moment, taking in his words. She hadn't expected this level of honesty from him. She had always seen Liam as this distant, powerful figure, someone who didn't need anyone. But now, sitting across from him, she saw him in a different light. "I can't pretend I know what this means," Mia said quietly. "I can't pretend I understand what you're going through, but I know that I can't stay stuck in this small world forever. I want more for myself, but I need to figure out what that means. I don't want to be just another moment in your life. I don't want to be something temporary." Liam's face softened, and for the first time, Mia saw a vulnerability she hadn't noticed before. "I'm not asking for a temporary connection, Mia," he said. "I'm asking if you're willing to take a chance on something real. Something that doesn't involve status, money, or anything else. Just us." Mia sat back in her chair, processing his words. It was a lot to take in, and she wasn't sure she was ready to make a decision. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was standing at a crossroads, a moment where she could either stay in the life she knew or take a risk on something she couldn't yet fully understand. As the conversation continued, Mia realized that Liam wasn't asking for her to change her life for him. He was asking her to find her own truth and to take a chance on a connection that might just be the real thing. She wasn't sure what that meant yet, but for the first time, she was open to the possibility. The following days felt like a whirlwind for Mia. She had met with Liam, and their conversation had left her with more questions than answers. What had started as a simple arrangement for a night at a gala had turned into something far more complicated, something that she wasn't sure she was ready to handle. Despite her reservations, something about Liam's sincerity stuck with her. His words had been clear. He wasn't asking for anything. He wasn't asking for her to change, to fit into his world, but rather, to consider a real connection. The problem was that Mia had spent so long keeping her life small, keeping her emotions hidden, that now, with Liam standing at the edge of her world, she wasn't sure how to take that first step forward. She spent her nights lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was being foolish. Maybe this was all just a fleeting moment, a temporary distraction for a billionaire who had everything but still felt lonely. But then again, maybe it wasn't. The idea of something real, something deeper than just the surface level, called to her in ways she couldn't ignore. One morning, as she arrived at the bakery for another long shift, Mia found herself replaying the conversation she'd had with Liam, trying to make sense of it all. But the more she thought about it, the clearer it became. She couldn't keep living the way she had been, hiding behind her simple life, afraid to take chances. She had to take control of her own destiny. Later that day, Liam reached out again, this time with a simple text. Mia, I've been thinking about you. Would you like to meet again? No pressure, just us. She stared at the message for a long time, her fingers hovering over her phone. Was she ready? Was she ready to dive deeper into something that could change her life forever? It felt like too much to risk. But in the pit of her stomach, she felt something shift, something telling her that this was the chance she needed to take. She typed out a quick reply. I'd like that. The next afternoon, they met again, this time at a quiet cafe on a side street. The place was small and intimate, far removed from the glitz and glamour of the gala. It felt like a different world, one that Mia was more comfortable in. Liam was already sitting at a table when she arrived, and when he saw her, his face lit up. I'm glad you came, he said, standing up to greet her. He pulled out the chair for her, and she sat down, trying to ignore the flutter in her chest. Thank you for meeting me again, Mia said softly, her eyes meeting his. I've been thinking about what you said. About being real. He nodded, his eyes steady. I meant it, Mia. I don't want to keep living this way, hiding behind a facade. I've built my whole life around work, around success, but I haven't really lived. I haven't really connected with anyone. I want to change that. And I want you to be a part of that change. The words hit her like a wave. They were simple, but the sincerity behind them was undeniable. You're not just saying this because you feel bad about the gala, are you? Mia asked, her voice uncertain. No, Liam replied quickly, shaking his head. It's not about guilt. It's about realizing that I need to make a change. I've been looking for something real, Mia, and I think I've found it with you. Mia's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure how to respond. She wasn't used to hearing such honesty, especially not from someone like Liam. The man who had everything, who could have anyone, was standing before her, asking for something more. I don't know what this means, Mia said slowly. I don't know if I'm ready for this. You don't have to be ready, Liam said, his voice soft. I'm not asking for anything from you. I just want you to know that you're more than just a date for a gala. You're more than just a moment in my life. I want to get to know you, Mia. Not just the person you are on the outside, but the person you are on the inside. Mia felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so long hiding from the world, convinced that she wasn't good enough, that she wasn't worthy of this kind of attention. But now, here she was, faced with the possibility of something more, something real. She didn't know what to do with the emotions swirling inside her, but she knew one thing for sure. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a choice. She didn't have to settle. She didn't have to stay stuck in a life that didn't fulfill her. She could take a chance on something more. I'm scared, Liam, Mia admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Scared that this is just another dream, that it's too good to be true. I understand, Liam said gently. But that's why I'm here, Mia. To show you that it's real. To show you that you deserve more than just the life you've been given. Mia looked at him, her heart beating faster. She had never felt this way before, this uncertain, this vulnerable. But she also knew that she couldn't let this moment slip away. For the first time in years, she was ready to take a leap of faith. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let Liam show her what it meant to be truly seen. The days after their coffee meeting were filled with a mix of emotions for Mia. She couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Liam, the way he had opened up to her in a way she never expected. The vulnerability in his voice, the sincerity in his eyes, it had all felt so real, so different from the world she knew. She found herself asking the same questions over and over. Was this real? Could she really step into a world that was so different from the one she had always known? As much as she wanted to believe in what Liam was offering, there was a part of her that held back. She wasn't sure if she could take that leap of faith, if she could allow herself to be vulnerable again. She had spent so many years building walls around her heart, afraid of being hurt. Could she let go of those walls now? Could she trust him? Over the next few days, Mia tried to push these thoughts aside, focusing on her work and the routine of her life. But it was impossible to ignore the nagging feeling in her chest, the feeling that something was shifting, that she was standing on the edge of something new. The bakery was busier than usual, and Mia found herself caught up in the rhythm of baking and serving. But even in the midst of the hustle, her mind kept drifting back to Liam. She had agreed to meet him again, but now she was unsure of what that meeting would mean. Would it be another conversation about the future, about taking a chance? Or would it just be another moment that passed, leaving her more confused than ever? When the day came for their next meeting, Mia felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had spent the entire morning debating whether or not she should go, but in the end, she knew she had to. She needed answers. As she arrived at the small cafe where they had met before, she was surprised to see Liam already there, waiting. He looked more relaxed than the last time, dressed casually but still with an air of confidence. When he saw her, a warm smile spread across his face, and for the first time, Mia felt a sense of ease wash over her. "Hey, Mia," Liam said, standing up to greet her. "Thanks for coming." Mia smiled, trying to push aside the nerves that had settled in her stomach. "Of course," she replied, taking a seat across from him. There was a brief silence as they both settled into the moment, and for a few seconds, it felt as if the world outside the cafe disappeared. Liam was the first to speak. "I've been thinking a lot about you," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "And I realized something. I want to be with you, Mia. I don't just want a fling or a moment. I want something real." Mia's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say that. She had known that he had feelings for her, but hearing him put it into words was different. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Mia said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know if I can just jump into something like this, not after everything I've been through." Liam's gaze softened, and he leaned forward slightly. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'm not asking you to rush into anything. I just want you to know that I'm here. I want to build something real with you, Mia. I don't want to play games, and I don't want to waste time. What we have, it's worth something, and I believe we can make it work." Mia looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent so much of her life avoiding feelings, avoiding connections because she was afraid of getting hurt. But sitting here with Liam, hearing him speak so honestly, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop running. "I don't know what this is yet," Mia admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready to dive into this whole world with you, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see where it goes." Liam smiled, and in that moment, it felt like the weight of the world lifted off her shoulders. She wasn't making any promises, and she wasn't sure what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a choice. She could take a chance. She could take a leap of faith. "That's all I'm asking for," Liam said, his voice full of warmth. "One step at a time. We'll figure it out together." The rest of the conversation flowed easily after that, filled with laughter and small talk. But there was an underlying sense of connection that neither of them could deny. For the first time, Mia felt like she was part of something bigger than just her small world. She didn't know where this journey would take her, but she knew one thing. She was ready to take the next step. As they parted ways that afternoon, Liam gave her a look that made her heart flutter, a look that told her this was only the beginning. Maybe this wasn't just about her chance at happiness. Maybe it was about learning to trust again, about opening herself up to the possibilities of a new life. A life with Liam. And for the first time in a long time, Mia felt the excitement of a future that was hers to shape. The days following their conversation felt like a new chapter for Mia. She had agreed to take a step into the unknown, to explore something that had once seemed so out of reach. She and Liam spent more time together, and with each passing day, Mia felt herself softening. The walls she had spent years building were slowly coming down, and it felt good, refreshing, even. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe freely, like the weight of the world wasn't pressing on her every move. Liam was everything she hadn't expected. He was thoughtful, patient, and genuinely kind. He listened to her, not as a billionaire or a powerful CEO, but as a man who wanted to understand her, who cared. Mia, in turn, found herself opening up to him in ways she never had with anyone. Her dreams, her fears, her past. Liam became the person she trusted with all of it. But just as the connection between them deepened, a new challenge arose, one neither of them had anticipated. Liam's board of directors had been keeping a close eye on their relationship, and it wasn't long before the pressure of his professional life started to creep into their personal one. Liam had always been a man who prided himself on his ability to handle everything himself. But now, with Mia in his life, He found himself questioning whether his old way of doing things was enough. The night of the company gala, an annual event that brought together the most important figures in his industry, felt different. Normally, it would have been just another night to network and show off the company's success. But this time, it felt like an unwelcome reminder of the world he was trying to escape. Mia could tell that something was off the moment they arrived. Liam was quieter than usual, his eyes darting around the room, scanning faces he had known for years. The board members were scattered throughout the venue, their conversations filled with business jargon and polite small talk. But there was a tension in the air, one that Mia could feel as soon as she stepped into the room. "You okay?" she whispered to Liam as they stood near the bar, waiting for their drinks. He gave her a half-hearted smile, his usual confidence slipping for just a moment. "Yeah, just the usual," he said, his voice a little too calm. "Nothing I can't handle." Mia didn't believe him, but she didn't press. She could tell that something was weighing heavily on him. But tonight was about more than just the business. It was about them, about their growing connection, and she wasn't going to let the atmosphere of the gala overshadow what they had. As they made their way through the room, greeting people and exchanging pleasantries, Mia noticed the way people looked at her. There was a mix of curiosity and judgment in their eyes, like they were trying to figure out who she was and what she was doing in a world so far removed from her own. But Mia held her ground. She wasn't intimidated. She had worked too hard to get to this point in her life to let anyone's opinion affect her now. Liam's grip on her arm tightened slightly as they approached the board of directors. He was on edge, and Mia could feel it. "Just stick close to me," he said quietly, his voice low. "I'll handle this." Mia nodded, trying to reassure him with a small smile. "I'm not going anywhere." The night dragged on, filled with uncomfortable conversations and business deals being brokered behind closed doors. Mia felt like an outsider, but she was determined not to let it show. As the evening wore on, she and Liam slipped away from the crowd, retreating to a quieter corner of the venue. Liam leaned against the wall, his eyes closed for a moment as if he were trying to collect his thoughts. "This isn't how I wanted this night to go," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. Mia stepped closer to him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "You don't have to be perfect, Liam," she said softly. "You don't have to carry everything on your own." He opened his eyes and looked at her, the weight of his worries visible in his gaze. "I've spent so many years pretending I had it all together," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But the truth is, I'm not sure I can keep up with all of it anymore. The company, the pressure, it's like it's suffocating me. And I'm afraid I'm dragging you into it too." Mia felt a pang of sympathy for him, and for the first time, she saw Liam for who he truly was. Not just the CEO, but a man struggling with his own demons. "You're not dragging me into anything," she said, her voice firm. "I'm here because I want to be. We're in this together, okay?" Liam looked at her, his expression softening. For a moment, the noise and chaos of the gala faded into the background, and all that mattered was the connection they shared. "I don't deserve you, Mia," he said quietly. "You're everything I've been looking for, and I'm scared of messing this up." "You don't have to be perfect, Liam," Mia repeated, her voice gentle. "You just have to be you." They stood there for a long moment, the weight of the world feeling just a little bit lighter between them. Despite the tension of the evening, Mia knew that their connection was real. And for the first time, Liam seemed to believe it too. As they headed back into the crowd, hand in hand, Mia felt a sense of calm wash over her. The night wasn't over yet, but no matter what happened, they had something that no one could take away: each other. The weeks that followed the gala felt like a new beginning for both Mia and Liam. They spent more time together, navigating the new dynamic of their relationship, one that had shifted from a professional arrangement to something far more personal and meaningful. They both learned to let go of their fears, Mia, of being out of place in Liam's world, and Liam, of letting someone into his life beyond his business empire. Their connection deepened, and as time passed, they found themselves discovering a side of each other they had never expected. Liam, for all his power and wealth, revealed his vulnerabilities to Mia. He confessed to her the pressure he had been under for years, how the weight of success had kept him from truly living. He had built an empire, but it had come at the cost of his happiness. Mia listened, offering him the understanding he had long been searching for. Her own struggles, while different, gave her the empathy to relate to him in a way no one else had ever done. She had spent most of her life feeling small, believing that her world of hard work and quiet ambition was all she would ever know. But with Liam, she found herself dreaming of something more, of a life where she wasn't afraid to ask for what she deserved. One evening, as they sat together in Liam's penthouse overlooking the city, he turned to her with a look in his eyes that made her heart race. "Mia," he began softly, "there's something I've been meaning to ask you. Something I've known for a while, but I've been too scared to say it." Mia looked at him, sensing the weight of the moment. "What is it?" she asked, her voice gentle. Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I can't imagine my life without you in it," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've changed everything for me. You've made me see that there's more to life than success and wealth. You've shown me that love, trust, and connection are the things that truly matter. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Mia." Mia's breath caught in her throat. She had always feared that this kind of love, the deep, unconditional kind, was something that only existed in fairy tales. But here it was, sitting across from her in the form of a man she had once thought was untouchable. Liam wasn't just the CEO of a major tech company. He was the man who had opened up his heart to her, who had shown her that she was worthy of a love she had never dared to dream of. "Liam, she started, but the words got caught in her throat. She had never been one for grand gestures, never allowed herself to believe in the kind of love Liam was offering. But now, with him sitting before her, offering her his heart, she knew she couldn't hold back any longer. "I love you," she finally whispered. "I love you too," he said, his voice filled with relief. For a long moment, they sat there, holding each other's gaze, both of them realizing how far they had come, how much they had grown, not just as individuals, but together. That night, as they held each other close, the weight of the world seemed to lift. The fears and insecurities that had once held them back were gone, replaced by something stronger, something that could weather any storm. Their journey had only just begun, but Mia and Liam knew they were ready to face whatever the future held, together. The next morning, as the sun rose over the city, Liam took Mia's hand in his, leading her to the balcony. The city sprawled out before them, a symbol of all the possibilities that awaited them. He turned to her with a smile. "I know we've both had our fair share of struggles," he said, his voice filled with hope. "But together, we can build something better. Something real." Mia smiled back, her heart full. "Together," she agreed. And in that moment, they both knew that the love they had found wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was a promise. A promise to always be there for each other, to support and love one another through whatever came their way. They had both come so far, but they had a lifetime ahead of them, and they were ready to make the most of it. As they stood there, hand in hand, watching the sun rise over the city they would build their future in, Mia realized that love, the kind that lasts, wasn't about perfection. It was about finding someone who saw you for who you truly were, and who was willing to stand beside you, no matter what. And with Liam by her side, Mia knew she had found that kind of love, the kind that would carry them through whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but one thing was for sure. Together, they could face anything.